Hi, I'm Greg Johnson. We're here at the 2013 Monterey Motorsports Reunion honoring Corvette this year. I'm driving a 1960 Corvette. This is a gathering of race cars that happens once a year in August. This is the biggest gathering, probably the most famous gathering in the United States. It's one of the best gatherings in the world, and we're honoring Corvette in a magnificent way.
My name's Ellwood. I work with the Registry of Corvette race cars, and what we're here for today is to talk a little bit about John Greenwood's cars. We're here at Monterey, and there's quite a few cars here that are Greenwood based. John Greenwood was just a wild and crazy kid up in Detroit, Michigan. He started racing when he was about 19 on the street and on the track, but around 1968-69 he actually started to get serious. He sort of bought his first Corvette in 1968 and turned it into a racer. Did quite well with that. And then he bought another Corvette in 1970, this time a Roadster, and he did quite well with that. He won SCCA national championships in 1970 and 71. Built quite a bit of a reputation. So we got a deal with BF Goodrich to run 5 long-distance races for 2 years. As a result, they built 3 race cars to run the longer endurance races, and they were the BF Goodrich Stars and Stripes cars, which ran for 1972 and 1973. So what we have here behind us is number 50 car. 3 cars were 48, 49, and 50. Paint design was by Randy Berg, and the engines by Greenwood are basically a combination of his own special knowledge of how to build 427 big blocks and some work with John Kinsler on developing the cross-ram fuel injection manifold. These cars raced in 72, 73, and went to Le Mans in France for both of those years. After that, John got into what he calls his customer car series. That's a series of 12 cars that were built over the period 74 through 76 into 77. And the first 3 were team cars. So chassis number 001, 002, and 003 stayed mostly with John Greenwood, and the remaining cars were sold out to customers with coilovers all around, with or without engines, depending what series the people were running and what the rules of that series would permit.
At the end, and I found it in Brad Cooper was driver, Billy Krause was driver. Get it, Shane, you got it? Okay.
We found Lance Smith's shop here at Monterey, and we've got the 2 cars in front of us that are most famous probably of all the John Greenwood cars. John had Bill Riley design a chassis for him, and GM, he was working with GM to design the wide body panels. So that's what happened here. Between the Bob Riley suspension, GM wide body, Randy Berg paint, John came up with what he called the Customer Car Series. So the first 3 cars in the Customer Series, chassis number 1, which oddly is Spirit of Sebring 76, and chassis number 2, which is Spirit of Sebring 75, both were team cars. Chassis number 3 was never built as a car, the Spirit of Sebring 75. When it first made its appearance at the 1974 Detroit Autorama. And from there it went on to the track, raced IMSA with Greenwood driving, and did extremely well for the first couple of years. John's cars were astoundingly fast and sometimes broke. So a lot of his competitors would say, hey, don't worry about John, he's not going to finish the race. But, you know, he was giving it his all. There's no point in bringing anything home if it hasn't been used. Chassis number 1, which became the Spirit of Sebring 76, was originally built for Jim Levitt and is now with Steve Golden out of Florida. Steve has just finished an extensive restoration on this car, and what you see here is real pristine work. Steve also owns the Spirit of Le Mans 76. Because in 76, John was invited to bring a car back to Le Mans. It was after the fuel crisis. There was a bit of a recession going on. Le Mans organizers really wanted some American iron there to draw the crowds. And nobody drew a crowd like John. So it went to Le Mans, and meet FIA GT regulations. He needed a car that didn't have the coilover suspension. So he borrowed a car, chassis number 7, from Rick Mancuso up in Chicago. The car went to Le Mans and it fulfilled its function. It drew crowds and it went like stink. So now then, that car is up for auction. Part of the restoration was a 1,000 horsepower engine. The guys that wrote it up in newspapers at the time simply called it, after Briggs Cunningham in the 60s, Le Monstre. So the Monster. And so that was how it's fared. And that car is now, as I said, on auction here in Monterey, and we can expect it to bring a really good price. And what we've got here is Andre Didier's car, an original John Greenwood Customer car, chassis number 12. Andre bought it last year. He's left it in America for a couple races, and now he's going to take it back to France after this weekend's events. So chassis number 12 was the last customer car series to be built that we know of so far. And it was bought by Albert DeLeo in Connecticut, and Albert only ever got to run one IMSA race at Lime Rock before he sort of parked it in a trailer. But the trailer was heated and it was pretty dry, so when it was found by Lance Smith, it was in pretty good condition. It started and they drove it home. Lance sold it to a friend of his and it was put up for auction, and DGA bought it. So this car represents the last of the Greenwood Customer car series, followed only by 2 full tube frame cars. But the cars that we've seen here today really represent what John Greenwood was all about. And I gotta say, he was all about big power and big tires and big force. So that's John Greenwood, and this is Monterey.
From New York City, 1967 Aston Martin powered Volvo FD70, and 65 is Donald Anderson of San Diego, and Mark 7. 21st.
Having fun. That was cool. That was fun. It was okay. Because we didn't finish the qualifying race, we ended up starting in the back, so I had plenty to pass. But it's still not running right. So it's just the best we could do today. That was cool. It was a lot of fun.